Right, Chavre, good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas Perek Gimel Halacha Vav, and God willing, we're going to start today Perek Dalet Halacha Aleph. In the Oiz V'Hadar edition, we are going to Daf Mem Aleph Amid Beis. At the last line of the Amid, we'll be learning today Daf Mem Beis. We're dedicating this class for the miraculous, God willing, imminent taking back of all of the Yidden that were stolen, and for the success of the IDF and for the safety of the Yidden all around the world. So first of all, let's quickly recap the Mishnah that we concluded yesterday's share with, right, Halacha Vav. The Mishnah gave three examples. There was one example about a man, and that was a Zav that later also saw a Keri. Then we had two scenarios by a woman. In all three scenarios, not only was the person a Bal Keri, the person also had a Tuma Chamura, for which going to the mikvah to take away Tumas Keri would not resolve the Tuma Chamura. Question is, are you still obligated in Tfilas Ezra? Or do we say, since anyways you have a higher level of Tuma, for which the mikvah won't even resolve, then in such a scenario, even Ezra did not make the takana, and you can say the Shema, you can say Shemana Esrei, you can say Dvarim Shebi Kedusha. That is a machloikes Tanoim. The Tanakama holds, the Chachamim hold that Tzrichem Tvila, and the Tana Rebbe Yehuda, Toiter, you don't have to go to the mikvah, which means that you are allowed to say Shema, etc., even though you're a Balket. There's going to be one question, Bishitas Rabbi Yehuda, and one answer. In the Bavli, it's Pashat asked and answered. In the Yerushalmi, for some reason, the Gemara here is going to bring three versions of the same question and the same answer. Obviously, if it's mamish the same, you wouldn't have to have three different ways of wording it. So I'm sure there's a lot of depth over here. But at least the Chitzonius, the way we're learning quickly, as we're going to begin today's shir learning the Charedim, he's going to make it clear that everything we're going to learn from now until the end of the Perek is going to be a question, wanting to understand what would be the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, and an answer and a proof in three different versions. That's going to be Daf Mem Beis until the new Perek. The new Perek that God willing we will start today moves on from Shema, which was the topic from Perek Aleph. We're going to move now into Shemona Esrei. And we're going to have many topics. First, we're going to have in the Mishnah, until when is man Shachris? Until when can you daven Shachris Shemona Esrei? We're going to have a question, until when can you daven Mincha? We're going to have until when can you daven Maidev? We're going to have until when can you daven Musaf? We're going to see a gewaldige question as to how this Mishnah is concluded. Did Rabbeinu HaKadosh include by Musaf Shitas Rabbi Yehuda or not? We'll speak about that. And then we'll begin learning the Gemara. The Gemara is going to start teaching us many, many halachas regarding Shemona Esrei. All right, so without any further ado, Chavre, again, let us go to Daf Mem Aleph Amid Beis. Let's go to the last line of the Amid. We just quickly reviewed Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the one. Let's begin this today's share by learning the Charedim, because what with this big Charedim right in the Gemara is mamish almost the whole daf until the Mishnah. Says the Charedim, At Kedoin. The word At Kedoin means until now. We're gonna get to the Gemara in a second. Look inside the Charedim. Says the Gemara, Ad Rabbi Yehuda, the Patar boy. The question of the Gemara is going on the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, which was really, you can say, a lenient opinion. The case of the Mishnah was a person is a Zav, and during the time of him being a Zav, prior to him having the proper Shivas Nekiyim and Maim Chayim, he saw a Keri. So the question is, Patar Gam Akeri Shiroi Zav. What were to happen, Chavre, if first he had Tuma Kalo, and then he had Tuma Chamura? First he became a Balkeri, and then he became a Zoif. In the case of the man, the Mishnah only spoke Zav. At that time, he has the highest level of Tuma. Then he became a Balkeri, says Rabbi Yehuda, he doesn't have to go to the mikveh. Maybe, if first he became a Balkeri, and at that moment when he wasn't yet a Zoif, L'kula alma, he was chayiv to go to the mikvah tefillah says. Maybe even Rabbi Yehuda will hold that even though now he became a zav, since there was a moment where the chiyuv of Ezra was chal on him, so he still has to go to the mikvah. That is the question. Okay? And let's read inside, since we're learning three versions, let's learn the fourth version, which is in the Bavli. V'zel loshain ha-Bavli. Boy, who asked in the yeshiva, Balkeri, later, Shira Ziva Mahu. And these are all the words of the Gemara and Bavli. We're familiar with this one. Ki Pater Rabbi Yehuda Hasa, maybe only Bezav. First he was a Zav. Then Shira Kelly, since the Me'ikara Lav Bar Tfilah, a Zav is not about Tfilah, guys. Don't forget, a Zav has to actually go to Ma'im Chayim. He has to do it after Shivas Nekiyim. So therefore, maybe that's why Rabbi Yehuda says, now that he had a Yaskeri, he doesn't have to go to the mikvah for Tfilah says it. Avo Balkeri, Shira Ziva, which at that moment says Rashi, quoting the words in the Gemara Bavli, the Mi'ikara Bal Tfilahu, maybe Machayev. The other side is Oidil Loishna. That's the kasha. And guys, we spoke it out when we learned the Mishnah. What's the Gemara? So the Gemara answers, Tashema, words of Bavli. Look inside the case, the second two cases of the Mishnah. And like we spoke out, the Mishnah gave two cases. One case of the Mishnah was first Anida, that then had Shepalta Shichva Zera. Okay, which is similar to the Zav, that's Soakeri. And then the Mishnah says, Hamisha Meshes Shira Asunida. The Mishnah's third case was first the woman was Mishameshes. At that time, she wasn't yet a Nida. At that time, for sure, the obligation of Tfilas Ezra was Chal on the woman. Then she became a Nida. And yet, Rabbi Yehuda says, fight it. Okay, we're reading inside the Chared. Shema, Hamishamesh, Shuru Asanida, never Tzrichim Tvila, Rabbi Yehuda fight it. Now, Vaha, Mishamesh, Shuru Asanida is mamish, like the inquiry, is like the Balkeri, Shuru Ziva, Damia. And nevertheless, the Kopatale Rabbi Yehuda, Shmamina, Atkan Lushoinoi. So, guys, it's easy meaning that's the cash, that's the boyam, that's the answer, that's the proof. We're going to have this in three versions until the end of the Pedic. Now we're going to start learning inside the Yerushalmi. Says the Gemara, Ad Kedoim, up until now, if we're only focusing on the man, and the Mishnah only gave one case for the man, which was Zav, Shira Keri. On that, the Rabbi Yehuda says, that what? That pointed. This person doesn't have to go to the mikveh. The question is, that's the way we're going to learn Pshat in the Gemara. And I want you to, if you just take a look, you'll see there are so many different Girsais in the words. So we're going to follow the Girsa of the Charedim. That Va'afilu, the Gemara is asking, let's add the word Baal. Va'afilu, that first there was a Balkeri, and then Shara Zoiv. Perhaps you also have the words Mayil Hu Shehu Toivel, there it would help. Is he chayiv or not chayiv Rabbi Yehuda? Question mark. Answers the Gemara. Same content like we had on the Bavli, but these are different words. That Nishma'ina Minada. We can hear it, we can learn the answer from the following. And the following is from the Sefer of our Mishnah, when the Mishnah gives the third case, which is the second case of the woman. That first she was Hamishameshes. And we already spoke out that the act of Hashmish in itself is Machayiv for the woman, Tfilas Ezra. And then Shiro Asanida. The Tanakama says Tzricha Tfilah, and Rabbi Yehuda says Praita. Is Araya, it doesn't matter whether first you were a Zav and then you became a Balkeri, even if first you were a Balkeri and then you were a Zav, Rabbi Yehuda will nevertheless say the same, which is Praita. And now, you completely, Zava, only Ma'im Chayim, just start with that, aside of the fact that the Zava has to have the Shivas Nekiyim, but even the mikvah is different. Correct. Now, the words my tam, or we have my tama, I think there's a lot of nuance. The Charedim, if you look inside, middle of the narrow lines, again, we just said this, that the Charedim emphasizes, I'm reading inside the word, Vehi hasha'ayla v'hatshuva atzma b'lashon acheres deracharuch. Very important. What we're learning now, the my tama even though, yeah, there's a maitama, but it's the same question and answer. Very important. We don't have to read the Charein. It's the same question and answer, but it's going to be a little bit more Beloshan Arucha. And what do we mean? Beloshan Arucha is that when they asked this question, they began not what's going to be the din of a Balkeri that later became a Zov. They began asking this question by asking, why is Rabbi Yehuda poiter? My time of the Rabbi Yehuda, my time here doesn't mean what's the source in a pasuk here. My time it means the way it means in the Bible. Why does he say that it's? And there's two options. Option number one is get used to these words. Mishem, for the reason of mamoyel. Mishem mamoyel. Mamoyel means of what use will it be? In other words, Mishem mamoyel hu kama shutoivel. That's one option. No, since he's already tummy b'tumah zav, which means going to the mikvah won't remove the tumah. So what's the point of him going to the mikvah? Mamoyel. Or again, whether you have the word oy, whether you don't have the word oy, it's just very hard. Without having the right text, you see why people have a hard time learning it. Not because the content is difficult. You didn't have the correct word. So let's follow one version. Oy. Another reason, and that is we're going to skip the word she'in. We're going to read the word she'ain. She'ain, shame, l'tuma kala, etzel chamura. Once a person is tamei, l'tuma chamura, like the zav, even when they become a balkeri, since it's a tuma kala, it is of no significance. It's as if they did not become tamei. Yeah. But not because mamoyel. L'may nafkamina. Whether we say mamoyel or whether we say the words she'ain shem l'tuma kala, ma'id nafik mi b'nayim. So now that's the way they addressed it. The nafkamina will be if the person first saw a keri and then he became a zav. So if the reason behind why Rabbi Yehuda is poiter, no. Let's finish reading. You'll see that if first there are keri and then a ziva. So in Tema. In means oib. If you're going to say that the reason why Rabbi Yehuda is poiter because of mamoyel means what will it help? It will help. Why will it help? Because guys, before the person became a zov, at that moment he was only a balkeri. The tefillah would help. So the chiyuv was chal. Once the chiyuv is chal, maybe you still have to go. But if the reason will be because it is of no significance, then we will say, Vlad, even though there was a period of time where yes, moyel, it's not significant, which means it's like bottle. It's like when the person is a zav now, the balkeri doesn't. We're not goyres. Doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, what's the point of going to the mikvah?
They're very close together in time because.
I would say maybe first of all, is saying it's a time thing. I would say even if the guy was a balkeri and he became a zav a second later, which means he couldn't have gone to. It doesn't matter since during that first second, at that time, moyel, once you're chayiv, it doesn't go off. Or we say that. I know that, but going to the mikvah is not for the result. Going to the mikvah will be only for the balkeri. No, but the chachamim in our Mishnah hold that you have to go to the mikvah. The mikvah that the chachamim hold you have to go is not to a ma'im chayim because you have to have shivas nekiyim. The chachamim hold you have to take care of tumas keri. I want you to know that we go like the chachamim. Ask a simple question: when you go to the mikvah and I go to the mikvah, I'm to make tamei mace. Tamei mace is the most chomer dikatuma. Yet we go to the mikvah. Why do we go to the mikvah? You're tummy anyways, and a chanami. For tamei mace, I'm still tummy. I have to have the 7 days. I have to have the mechatos. We don't have the mechatos because we chose not to make it. We can make it now. And God willing, so we're going to wake up with all this. We're going to start doing the mitzvahs better. But that Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says point. So these are the two ways. Mamoil, or because it's bottled. It's bottled. So the proof will be the same thing. Have normally means let's understand. The word have, according to this, is the way they worded the answer. What's the answer? That leis tame The law, mishum ein shem l'tuma kala etzel tuma chamura. It has to be not mamoyel, but she'ein shem l'tuma kala. It's completely insignificant. Why is it completely insignificant? The proof is they didn't even have to speak it out from the Seif of the Mishnah, which is since the Mishnah gave by the women both cases, not only Nida that later Shapalta Zera, but also Hamisha Meshes that became a Nida. And even there, Rabbi Yehuda spoited. Why? If it's because of Mamoyel, she should go to the mikvah. So it's not because of Mamoyel, but it's because she ain't Shein L'Tumakala. And now, again, we're learning according to the Charedim, same question and same answer. It's just a different way it was worded. And I know for sure, when you learn this properly in yeshiva, you break it down better. But the gist is, in the Bavli, they only recorded the kasha and the answer, Kiloshin HaBavli. And here in the Yerushalmi, we're going to have the third way they asked the question. And here, this third began with the same words of the first, At Kedoin. At Kedoin, until now, meaning by the man, the case of the man was only Zav, that became a Balkeri. Which means the case the Mishnah gave was Kishabas, guys, and Dafman Beis Amad Beis, Kishabas Loi, Tumakala, Bisoif. The Tumakala came at the end. First Zav, then Balkeri. Now the Gemara wants to know, this is Mama Shalosh and Kitzur, this is the most brief. You see how brief they are? Afilu Basloi Tumachamura Basoif. Will he even hold it in the case where the Tumachamura came second? And on that the Gemara said, Nashmi ina menado. We know the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda from Menado, from what? From our Mishnah. And here they did quote the end that Hamish Hamesh Asher Asanida Tzricha Tefila. And on that, Rabbi Yehuda pointed clearly concludes the Gemara, Hadda Amra Kult Ois. This tells us that he Hadda makes no difference. Tziyazoi in Yiddish, Tziyazoi. Whether which doesn't matter which one came first, because it's, let's go back to the second version. It's not about mamoyel, because right now you can argue when the woman was a mishameshes moyel, doesn't matter. Now that there's a tumachamura, the tumakala is not here. It's bottle. It's nullified. It's amazing. It's nullified. Beautiful. And therefore, Rabbi Yehuda is pater. And on that we say, Hadan Allah Mishamesu. God willing, we're coming back. But I'm happy that we have time. So it's good. So let us start now with Hashem Self, the 4th chapter. Tfilas HaShachar. L'stam Lohar, that I know that many people learn this in Bavli, and there's no better way of reviewing all these dinim, dafka like this, by learning in the Yerushalmi. So we have no rush. The Mishnah itself is so loaded, Chavra. And we're going to spend a lot of time also reading the Charedim, because we have the time and everything will become very much enlightened. Okay. The Gemara, the Mishnah is not starting as we started in Perek Rishon, from when can you read the Shema? The Mishnah is not starting from when can you daven Shachris. We already had that. Before. The Mishnah is now asking, until when can you say Shachris? And the Rabbi here in the Mishnah quotes a machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. Let's begin. Tfilas HaShachar, Shitas Chachamim is ad Chatzois. However, Rabbi Yehuda Omer only ad arba sha'os va'ad b'chlal, until the end of the 4th hour of the day. Now, to better appreciate this machlokes, let's read inside the Charedim, guys, all the way on top of the Amid. Tfilas HaShachar ad Chatzois. Why? Why until Chatzois? It's very simple. One of the reasons why we daven Shachris, even though we have in the Bavli 2 reasons, whether it was originated from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, with all of the questions on that. We have Avraham Avinu daven Mincha also v'chulei. But let's go with that. Avos, or it's Keneged the Korbanos. So we're going to go to Keneged Korbanos. So if the Tfilah Shachris is Keneged Talmud Shel Shachar, until when can you bring the Talmud Shel Shachar? And that's really the underlying machlokes of the Chachamim, and Rabbi Yehuda says the Charedim. But since the Chachamim go with the Shita that Talmud Shel Shachar itself could be brought until Chatzois, of course, Zriz and Magnimen, and of course, you can't bring any Korbanos prior to the Talmud Shel Shachar, so it would be a pity to bring it that late, but you could bring it until midday. So let's go. So therefore, Shachris, you could have it until midday. Let's read it inside. Shekein Talmud Shel Shachar, according to the Chachamim, Charev at Chatzois l'Rabbanan. And what about Rabbi Yehuda says the Charedim? Rabbi Yehuda einer konav ela aram abba choice bayom. Beautiful. No, it's really their machlokes is about until when can you bring the Talmud Shel Shachar? It manifests the same machlokes b'negeya tefillah shachris. Now another clarification: when we say the fourth hour, it means va'ad arba shois hainu. First ad va'ad b'chlal ad soif sharavis. Another important thing is that we're not speaking about hours on your clock. We're speaking about halachic hours known as sha'ois zmaniyos. So summer, every hour will be longer. In other words, you take the 12 hours and you divide it. You take from the morning until night, divide it into 12. Winter will be a lot shorter. So worded this way, it's a third of the day. And a period. Now, it's the Charedim quotes the Bartanura that says the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. I want you to know that really we paskin that lechatchila like Rabbi Yehuda, but b'diavad until lechachamim. The reason why the Charedim is quoting halacha like Rabbi Yehuda, I'll give you a heads up, is because our Mishnah is going to discuss Shachris, Mincha, Ma'ariv, Musaf. And it's amazing that by the last case of Musaf, even though it's a machlokes chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda, many did not have the girsa in the Mishnah Rabbi Yehuda. Many do. There's a machlokes whether Rabbi brought down Shitas Rabbi Yehuda when it comes to Musaf, and the Charedim will come with their approach that the Charedim holds that the Rabbi was not going to Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Question would be why? So he wants to emphasize that in this Mishnah, Rabbi only wrote down Rabbi Yehuda if he paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. Normally, but since Rabbi paskins that Yadav and Shachar is only until the end of the fourth hour, so he quoted Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. And the same thing will be with Mincha, and the same thing will be with every other machlokes. But by Musaf, we'll see. Rabbi didn't paskin like Rabbi. He didn't quote him, even though there's a Tosefta that quotes Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. And by the way, other people were goydes Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah. I'm just okay. Right. Next, keep your finger in the Charedim. Next topic is Mincha, Tfilas HaMincha. So we're not saying from when. We're asking until when. Machlokes. Chachamim say ad ha'erev, until evening. What does evening mean? So many people would say until Shkia. We're Hasidim. What do we know? That we daven mincha after Shkia, like the Charedim, the Hasidim. Acha Techshach says the Charedim. The Alter Rebbe wrote in the Siddur a letter that we have. The Alter Rebbe wrote a letter that's printed in the Siddur that we're not medagdek with mincha until Shkia. We don't do that. And many Hasidim dafka don't do that. One of the upsides, the kitzur, about davening mincha very late is that the Alter Rebbe wrote at least twice. That's printed in the Tanya. His emotional anguish of when you have 10 Yidden in a shul davening, for there to be talking, there's no greater bizoyan to the Shekhinah possible. He writes terrible things. It's like slapping the king in the face. And now, people who daven mincha prior to Shkia, and especially if they're going to follow the sheet of the Alter Rebbe, which is the most machmir, from when can you say Shema? We spoke about it. Let's say it's around 28 minutes, 30 minutes, 31 minutes, depending where you live, after what you think is Shkia. That gives a large amount of time, and theoretically, if everyone would taka learn, it would be beautiful. And if the reality is that people don't have that amount of concentration at the end of the day, and they end up schmoozing just for that, then you're losing the advantage of davening mincha early and waiting until the latest time. The Alter Rebbe writes that it's ma'akev de geula yudoichik rak li'ashchina. Like, wow, it sounds from the Alter Rebbe better don't daven. You think because you're going to speak to the king. You're going to speak to the king. You're spitting the king in the face. Don't talk to the king. He writes these words, mamash. It's so. Therefore, the solution for that is that. That's
why, by the way, Rabbi. That's why there's a Choshev Rav from the other side of town who recommends that by these business office minchas that they dafka do a heicha kedusha, because he said it's a big bizayin. Otherwise, people talk.
Okay, so I like that, but I would say like this: that everyone you have to know how much to conform, how much to push. I can kind of argue that no, daven normal, and people should contain themselves and not talk. But when you have a big break between mincha and ma'ariv, it's much harder. Now it's good to learn something. Anyways, just speaking about that, just to point out, the Charedim says Zajac. Now, Rabbi, there's such an important machlekes. This machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer at plaga mincha. The word plaga mincha means, just to say like this, there's something called mincha gedola. Mincha gedola means it's the afternoon, but the afternoon is still long. The gedola goes on the afternoon, which means in the beginning of the afternoon. The beginning of the afternoon is 30 minutes after midday. 30 minutes after halachic midday is called mincha gedola. From then you can daven mincha. If you daven mincha, you still have a long afternoon. Mincha ketana is when you have a shorter afternoon. What's mincha ketana? It's 3 hours after the zman of mincha gedola, or 3.5 hours after chatzos. Why? What's the magic of 3.5 hours? That de facto, normally, not always, there's some psachim, but normally in the Beis Hamikdash, the Talmud Shel Ben Harbayim was brought in the time that we call mincha ketana. From then until Shkia, you have 2.5 shozmanias. Half of those 2.5 plag hamincha, that's the meaning of the words, which is 1 hour and 50 minutes shozmanias prior to Shkia. So Rabbi Yehuda holds you can only daven mincha until plag hamincha. Rabbi Yehuda holds after plag hamincha, it's already night. It's not afternoon anymore. Doesn't matter that the sun is out. Let's go inside the Charedim. Very good. Let's read inside the Charedim. At plag hamincha. First of all, half of mincha. Half of what mincha? If it would mean mincha gedola, then it would be half of 5.5 shvuot. No, it's half of 2.5. Why is it half of 2.5? Because the mincha refers to zman mincha ketana. When is mincha ketana? Mitesha shorish mechz. Until laila, shem shtei shoyis v'chatzi. So what's in plaga mincha? Shichatzi shir shavravi. Now, the Charedim goes on, like we mentioned. Why he's going with the shita? Why did Rabbi bring Rabbi Yehuda? Now, unlike in Shachris, where the Bartanura says that we mamish paskin all the way like Rabbi Yehuda, and like I mentioned, we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, we paskin like Yehuda for lachatchila. Here also, we don't paskin fully like Rabbi Yehuda, but we have a very unusual psak. What's the psak? Listen to the words. So pasak halacha bazeh. These are the words. The avad kamar avad. The avad kamar avad. That's the words of the Bible. You can pick whatever you want. We were given the option, you, now, to pick either like the Chachamim or like Rabbi Yehuda. However, there's a big however. Says that, let's read in the Charedim, when I get to pick, let me say by heart, there's 2 things. Ideally, I cannot pick one day like this, one day like that. I have to pick a shita for my life and always be consistent. Let's read inside. Listen to these words. You see the word? If you want to pass like the Chachamim, that means it's only night when what we call is night, and you can daven mincha all the way until then. So then you should never daven ma'ariv bisman zeh. Can't. We're not even talking about on the same day. We're talking about you got to pick a shita and always follow it. The kivin. The machshiv oisei yoim le'ingish mincha. If I'm davening mincha after plaga mincha, what am I saying? That I pass like the chachamim, plaga mincha, and later is still day. So in or the other option is also la'olam that v'haroitza are reading the charedim. V'haroitza last is kedivir Rabbi Yehuda lispal avris. From when you can daven ma'ariv mi plaga mincha l'mayla. Guys, we're not talking about Shema. We're going to go back to the Shema. No one says you can say after plaga mincha. We're speaking about ma'ariv. If that's your approach, if you pick that opinion, you should never do it. Let's fight it in the Charedim. Since we daven mincha until it's night, until the day leaves. Now, the Rebbe says the Charedim, Rabbeinu HaKadosh and Rav, that we know that Solon Shal Shabbos, the Erev Shabbos, like we're going to have in the Yerushalmi. According to the Charedim, they didn't do it only Friday, the way we do it here. I'm going to get to that in a moment. No, when the Charedim was saying that those that we find in the Tanoim and the Amoraim, that they would daven Friday, they were taking Shabbos early, that means that they always did that. Every day, look, Now, let's just finish. Tefillah b'lechudhu u'letzoyrech shal mitzvah. Avo kriya shema to lehavi kori atzeis hakechavim. Very good. Okay. Now he just says like this: that why did they do that? They had a tzorich mitzvah. They chose Rabbi Yehuda because for them it was more advantageous. Why was it more advantageous? I would argue because it's better to take on Shabbos early. That was the tzorich mitzvah. But they're following the Charedim hold since they wanted to do it Friday. They always did it. Now he says, look at this. Might have is one thing, Shema something else. Might have means Shmoina Esrei. And even if they would say Shema, we have this in the Yerushalmi, you can't just begin Shmoina Esrei. So they would say Shema the way we say Ashrei by Mincha, but they didn't say Birchas Kriya Shema. The Birchas Kriya Shema, Rabbi and Rav always said at night for the Shema, which means that the Tzorech Mitzvah, which is for Shabbos, to take in Shabbos early was so powerful that it trumps Geula L'Tfilah. They were never Soymech Geula L'Tfilah. Umiu Tzorech Mitzvah Shaloi Hoya Chosheshin Lismach Geula L'Tfilah. Umishum. No, it's the Tzorech Mitzvah so chashuv that they pass him like Rabbi Yehuda, even though that meant that in their life, by Maidiv, they were not Soymech Geula L'Tfilah. Big statements. In the Shulchan Aruch, yeah. And now, so the Charedim says, Lo'olam. In halacha, what we say is that this Lo'olam depends whether you're davening b'yechidus or you're davening b'tzibur. We also follow that b'yachid, you can't pick and choose whatever you want every day. But if you're davening b'tzibur, then you could. As long as you're not doing the same thing on the same day. There is one opinion in halacha that I don't want to mention, but people are soymech on it, and they hold that you can even do the tarta de sasra on the same day, which would mean that you can start mincha after plaga mincha. Which means that day, if you start mincha after plaga mincha, you're paskening like the chachamim, and after you finish mincha, you say, no, I want to do like Rabbi Yehuda. It's already night. That's the biggest stretch. I know there are some people that do that, but that's yachid mamish. The general rule today is like the Charedim. No, you can't pick and choose whenever you want. But if there's a minyan, then on the same day I can decide that today I'm going to Erev Shabbos. I'm going to pasken like Rabbi Yehuda, and since I daven mincha kid Rabbi Yehuda, I can daven ma'ariv kid Rabbi Yehuda. But then you have to repeat the Shema. Another detail: nowadays we don't follow the Yerushalmi, and that is that when you daven mincha kid Rabbi Yehuda, ma'ariv kid Rabbi Yehuda, like when we do here Friday night, those who are Kabbalah Shabbos. We don't take out the Birchas Kriya Shema. We daven a proper ma'ariv. And we're saying a Geula L'Tfilah, but we have to repeat the Shema. And when we repeat the Shema, we don't repeat it with its brachas. That's the way we are noying today. And let's leave it at that. I know it's early, but let's go by. Huh? From the Bavli and how do you pshat in the Gemara over there? Huh? Well, who's they?
Yeah. The ones who daven early, who did the bottom daven early?
Rebbe, Rav, always. What's the question?
Why could they be sent to
They can't, because they didn't hold that way. They didn't hold that way. They held that Shema means Birchas Kriya Shema, and if you're davening Ma'ariv early, so Rabbi Yehuda, they held Ma'ariv. We don't have such a thing. They just said Shema. Imagine they said if there was a Chatzei Kaddish, probably not even that. They said Shema Nesrei. We don't have it. We don't pass like the Yerushalmi. That's the way they did it.
The individual daven Friday night at home.
Yes. Oh,
He should not.
according to
Sorry. If he takes Shabbos early.
the Charedim is basically saying that according to the Charedim, that if a person like us normally davens mincha until the last moment possible, then the yechidus they can't say I'm doing it Friday night be Mekabel Shabbos early.
Right. Or the other way around. You take Friday night early. So during the week you should not daven.
Be yechidus. B'minyan he can find the heter still. Okay, let's go back. Next case. We don't behave that way. Doesn't mean we don't pass that way. Let's go back. Next case, guys. The next is every line is gold. The next topic is over here. There's no machlokes. Here, no one has a machlokes, and that is tefillah. So erev ein lo keva. Tefillah erev has no fixed time. Now, you ever heard the word tarta mashma? The words ein lo keva is problematic. Why is it problematic? Because the Mishnah should have said How does it? Tfilas hashachas ad chatzois, right? Tfilas mincha ad. It should say tfilas erev ad alois, ad ayeles, ad alois. Why does it say ein loikeva? Because Rebbe, in his brilliance, is saying two different things. Number one is that you can say it the whole night, but he's also telling you ein loikeva means you're not chayiv to say it. A ma'ariv, let's go the whole Mishnah the way the Charedim is saying. It's all because of it's all about the Talmud. Why do we go mincha ketana? Because of Talmud shel ben arbaim is brought out to mincha ketana. There's no carbon. You cannot begin a carbon at night. You can bring the chalavim and evarim, even though even that should have been brought during the day, but you can bring it during the night. But there's no carbon that's lechatchila brought at night. So there's no tfilas arvis, meaning tfilas arvis is called rishos. The way Rebbe said two dinim in one word is by saying the words tfilas erev ein like kava. Look inside the Charedim, 6 lines under the Gemara. Ein like kava smana kol alayla. I frek the Charedim v'hadu like toni hachabedya. Why didn't you write that? Yedei lichloi b'loshen zeh another thing. Tfilas arvis rishos. Chach perishu babavli v'chein pasku apoiskim. However, umi v'kasvu umi ha'idna. Ha'idna means already from the times of the Rishonim. You can't say it's rishos. Kvar kivu yisrael chayva. We took it upon ourselves like a chayva. So don't be makel in we're not talking about Shema in the Shemona Esrei in Ma'ariv. Now the final topic of the Mishnah is V'shel Musafim. Whenever there's a Musaf, means if it's Rosh Chodesh, if it's Shabbos, if it's Yom Tov, whatever there's a Musaf, says the Mishnah Kol Hayoyim. Now I want you to know that look inside the Charedim. The Charedim is quoting words that he not had in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer at Sheva Shos. You have to remember. I don't know who remembers very good brachas by heart. I'm curious if you open up today a normal Mishnayos. So some are goyres that Rabbi brought Rabbi Yehuda that says at Sheva Shos. Look inside the last Charedim. But the halach is like the Chachamim. That what? That you can say it the whole day. So many explain that the reason why in our version, like the way we have it in the Yerushalmi, they did not bring the Rabbi Yehuda. Why did you bring Rabbi Yehuda by Shachris and by Mincha? Because there we take a paskin. Even by Mincha, we don't paskin that you have to be like Rabbi Yehuda, but you have the option of Rabbi Yehuda. Since we don't paskin like Musaf, that's one explanation why for those who don't have that girsa. But one thing says the Charedim. It doesn't have the Charedim. You can say it Kol Hayoim, but one thing, guys, remember, Tader b'she'eino Tader, Tader koydem. You have to daven Shachris before Musaf. That is something that you have to. Okay. We have time. Let's begin. There's so much over here. Mamish Gavaldike Daf says the Gemara. So the Gemara Tfilas Hashachar at Chatzois. How do you know you have to daven? Where does it say in the Torah you have to daven? So says the Gemara Ksiv. It says, and now we are quoting words from the second portion of Shema, from Parsha Seike, from Bohim Shemoya, li'av Hashem Elokeichem, to love God and to serve Him. U'li'avde b'chol avchem b'chol nafshechem. So now the question is, v'chi yesh avoda b'leiv. Let me just add some spice, nigla spice. There's a contrast. When you look inside the first Parsha, what does it say? V'ahavta Hashem Elokeichem. No word of avoid is mentioned there. In other words, why? That's really the question. There's a mitzvah to love God. Oh, good, we get that. Why? And we're not even talking about why in the first parsha does it say b'chol me'yadecha, and in the second parsha it's not. We're not focusing on that. We're asking. There's a whole new topic. There's ahava and there's avoida. Now, normally, guys, you know what avoida means? When we say in the davening, when we speak about avoida, avoida means karbanos. Just to know that the nigla avoida means to serving God by bringing karbanos. But that's not something that's done in your heart. No, that's the kash. That the chi yesh avoida b'leiv avoida normally is karbanos. So the answer is there's two avoidas. There's the avoid of the karbanos, the avoid of the Beis Hamikdash, and then you have ezuzu or ezu zu tefillah. And you know what? Tefillah could be thought as lip service, and we're going to have all these dinim in the Gemara now that it's lips. You have to say with your lips. It's lip service, but it's not lip service. It's your heart. It has to be externalized with your lips, but it's avodah shebeleiv. Now this is going to be on the following. That Daniel He was exiled in Golos Bavel, and he ultimately became the big advisor. And there was a lot of envy that the Jewish Daniel became the advisor to the king. One of the things Daniel used to do is Daniel used to daven 3 times a day, and he davened, and he faced Yerushalmi. And there are many dinim that we learn about tefillah from Hannah. We know that, and there's many dinim we learn from Daniel. Ultimately, what they did was those anti-Semites is that they wanted to chap Daniel, so they told the king that they think in honor of the king, if anyone has any bakasha, any request for 30 days, they should ask it only from you. As a gesture of honor to the king, want to ask something? Anyone in your kingdom, they should only petition you. They petition anything else, it's a disrespect. Daniel davened 3 times a day, and they chapped him. That's why he was thrown into the lions then. But when the king threw him in there, the king loved him. The king was trapped to do it. So the king was like saying to Daniel that the God to whom you daven will protect you. Elokach, he told him. The an plach means avoida. Plach means avoida. Plach means davening, obviously, because there was no karbonis in Bavel. That Elokach, the an plach lebitadira, the one, the God to whom you always do avoida, who yishays vinach, he will save you. That was Daryavish, right? That was Daryavish, who was his heart wasn't there when he threw him into the lions then, and the miracle happened. Now, the fact that he used the words plach is avoida, Daniel didn't make karbanis after God chose the place of the mizbech. We're not allowed to bring karbanis in any other place. So that's just an ayah that avoida is tefillah, and the chiddush is that of the b'chol avavichem. It's even though tefillah, as we're going to learn right now, the flow is so good. Tefillah is words, but don't think that it's words. It has to be words that come from your heart. Now, another thing. Yochel says the Braisa, you might think you can have all 3 together. We have the Hayom Yom of Rosh Chodesh Kislev that Rabbi Yekusiel Lepler, the Chassid of the Alter Rebbe, asked the Alter Rebbe, Hak mechop the linke Zayt. No, he asked the Alter Rebbe, do me a favor. I don't want to deal with my Yetzer Hara. I don't want to do the work. You get rid of my Yetzer Hara. And he got a partial blessing from the Alter Rebbe, which means that he was gifted without any of his own work. He removed the animal soul from him, temporary at times, and during those times he became like a tzaddik. Elamah, since he didn't work on himself, every now and then the Yetzer Hara came back. And Rabbi Yekusiel Lepler would say himself, the chassid came, the chassid ran away. And when he was like us, he davened the way much better than we did, but not like a tzaddik. During the times that he was inspired, that's the background behind the Hayom Yom, he would daven the whole day. He would begin davening early. By the time he finished Achris, he needed to daven Mincha. By the time he needed to daven Ma'ariv. Harav Menachem Shmuel David Alevi of blessed memory, who saw this, who stayed with us for 18 years in our home, Mamish, that's how we daven Shabbos. He would wake up when it was dark, talking about Mamish and learning Hasidus and going to the mikveh. He went to shul with us to hear the Kriyas HaTorah. He davened the whole day. It's crazy. And he gave himself like a 2-minute break to wash, to have something to eat, a mitzvah. Then he went to daven Mincha. But that's not what the Gemara is asking. Yochel Yemispalo Shloshim Ka'achas is not to daven the whole day. It means, let's say that davening takes you an hour, and Mincha takes you 30 minutes, and Ma'ariv takes you 50 minutes to daven all together. You might think you can daven them consecutively, so we go back to Daniel. So Perush b'Daniel, the Zimnin Tulasa b'Yoymo Barach al Birchoi, that there were 3 times, meaning implying separate times that he would fall to his knees. He davened on his knees. Now let's cut another few lines. We turn Daf Mem Gimel. He davened 3 times, even though it was Rishus. He davened 3 times a day separately. It was not consecutive. So we make that's what we learn at Rambam. Very good. All shuls they try to do that to epis galetin between one to be mafsed. Maybe that's where that's where it comes from. Now, so you would think that you can daven to any direction you want. Talmud Loimer, all from Daniel. When it says v'chavin pesichon lei be'ilisei, that where did he have his windows open? That's another dinim that you're supposed to daven. Ideally, you have to see the heavens. Ideally, if you could, and he would open up the windows. Where did he have those windows open? Neged Yerushalmi. Now, Yochel, you would think that Daniel only did it. In other words, maybe when there was still the karbanos, he didn't daven 3 times a day. No, Talmud Loimer, it says that kol kavel dihava aved min kadmas deno, that Daniel did exactly what he did before, which implies that even before he went into Golus, even when there was a Mizbeach, even when there was Karbonos, Daniel davened 3 separate times a day. Now, Yochel Yehei Mispalol Shloshim B'chol Shosha Yirtzah. Okay, I get it. But that what? Not consecutive, non-consecutive. So that's very good, Rabbi Chaim. So learn a halacha of Rambam between each one. But again, there's no zman, no Kraperish David. David HaMelech says, Erev, only then Osicha means I will speak. The Ehemen, I will from my heart groan out. By end by Yishma Koili. We're going to stop over here. Very good. Chavre to be continued. For sure. The question was, were you mechuyev or was it optional? To be continued.